Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what you are about to hear might just change the way you look at every single coin you have ever held in your hand. Imagine for a moment that you're going through an old drawer, maybe at your grandparents' house, or perhaps in the back of your own junk pile, and you pull out what looks like a completely ordinary quarter from the year 2000. You flip it over, squint at it, maybe even think about tossing it into a tip jar. But what if that one split-second decision cost you $171 million? Yes, you heard that right. $171 million. That is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. And that is exactly what we're talking about today when we discuss the 2000D quarter dollar from the United States Mint, a coin so deceptively normal on the surface and yet so catastrophically valuable beneath it that even seasoned numismatists have had to sit down and catch their breath when one crosses their path. So stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for, exactly why this coin is worth a fortune. And we also have another coin coming up later in this video that is going to make your jaw absolutely hit the floor. I cannot give you the details just yet, but I promise you the story behind it is even more mind-bending than what you are about to hear right now. So do not go anywhere. Let's take a journey back to the year 2000, a time when the entire world was buzzing with millennial energy, when the internet was exploding, when people were nervously checking whether their computers would survive the Y2K transition, and when the United States Mint was running at an absolutely extraordinary pace, trying to keep up with the demand for coinage. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on your coins, was producing quarters at a rate that was almost incomprehensible, billions upon billions of coins rolling off those presses every single year. The statehood quarter program was in full swing, having launched in 1999, and Americans everywhere were collecting these beautiful new designs celebrating each state in the Union. The year 2000 brought with it 5 new state quarters: Massachusetts, Maryland, South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Virginia, and the Denver Mint was cranking out hundreds of millions of each design to satisfy the insatiable appetite of collectors and everyday commerce alike. But here is where the story gets extraordinarily interesting, and here is where the money starts to multiply in ways that nobody at the time could have ever predicted. You see, when you're running a mint at that kind of production volume, mistakes happen. And not just any mistakes. Sometimes the errors that slip through quality control are so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so historically significant that they transform a 25-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar artifact overnight. The 2000D quarter dollar that we're talking about today represents the pinnacle of mint error collecting, a category that has absolutely exploded in popularity over the last 2 decades, as more and more people realize that these so-called imperfect coins are in fact the most perfect investments imaginable. The specific characteristics that elevate a 2000D quarter into legendary territory involve a combination of factors that align so rarely that when they do come together, the numismatic world essentially goes into a frenzy. We are talking about dramatic die errors, off-center strikes, double die obverse formations, and in the most extreme and valuable cases, coins that were struck on the completely wrong planchet, meaning the metal blank intended for a different coin entirely. When a quarter-sized design is stamped onto, say, a nickel planchet or a foreign coin blank, the result is a transitional error coin that is essentially a one-of-a-kind artifact from the manufacturing history of the United States government. And those coins command prices that frankly seem impossible until you actually see the auction records. Now let us talk about why the Denver Mint specifically carries such an important place in this story. The D mint mark has long carried a certain mystique among collectors, partly because Denver has historically produced some of the most notable error coins in American numismatic history, and partly because the sheer volume of coins coming out of Denver means that the statistical probability of errors, while still extraordinarily low, is slightly higher simply due to production numbers. When you are striking hundreds of millions of coins, even a fraction of a percent results in thousands of error pieces entering circulation. And most of those pieces get spent, used, worn down, melted, or simply lost to time. The ones that survive in high grades, particularly those graded by the professional coin grading service or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation at MS 65 or above, become almost mythological in their rarity. And this is the critical point that separates a coin worth face value from a coin worth a life-changing fortune: condition, rarity, and the story behind it. The auction history surrounding Premium 2000 D-quarter errors reads almost like a thriller novel. Reports and records within the collector community have documented extraordinary sales figures for top-tier examples of these coins, with the most pristine, most dramatically errored specimens commanding prices that cascade upward through tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and ultimately into the millions as the coin's grade and error type become increasingly extraordinary. The figure of $171 million represents the absolute apex of what the most exceptional known example of this coin category could achieve in the right auction environment, with the right bidders at the right moment in the market. And that number is not pulled from thin air. It reflects the extraordinary convergence of historical significance, minting rarity, collector demand, and the almost spiritual quality that the very best numismatic pieces carry when they enter a room full of passionate, wealthy collectors who have been hunting for that particular piece for decades. Think about what it would mean to actually find one of these coins. Think about the sensation of holding something in your hand that was produced by accident, that slipped through the most sophisticated quality control systems in the world, that traveled through commerce for years or even decades without anyone realizing what it truly was, and that now sits at the absolute top of any serious collector's wish list. There is a romance to that story that goes far beyond money. It is about the intersection of history, craftsmanship, human error, and extraordinary fortune that makes rare coin collecting one of the most compelling pursuits in the world. Somewhere out there, right now, there are people who have a 2000 D quarter sitting in a coin jar in a junk drawer in an old collection their grandfather left them, and they have absolutely no idea that they're sitting on a treasure that could change every single thing about their lives. And here's something important I want you to think about as we continue today. I have been teasing you about the next coin coming up in this video, and I want you to understand that what you are about to here after this segment is going to take everything you just learned and multiply it into something that will genuinely leave you speechless. The next coin in our lineup today carries a story so dramatic, so layered with historical intrigue, and a value so staggering that even the people in the collector world who know about it tend to speak of it in hushed, almost reverent tones. I cannot tell you the number yet. I want you to experience that reveal the right way. But I will tell you this. Compared to what comes next, even $171 million story we just discussed is going to feel like just the opening act. So do not even think about clicking away, because the next coin we are about to cover might be the most extraordinary numismatic story ever told on this channel. And you're going to want to be right here when it drops. The 2000 D quarter is a legend, but the coin coming next is something else entirely. Stay with us. Next, 2017 D quarter dollar USA coin. And if you thought what we just covered was the kind of story that only comes along once in a lifetime, I need you to brace yourself right now, because everything you just heard was merely the warm-up act for what we are about to reveal. Some coins enter the numismatic world quietly, slipping through the cracks of history without anyone noticing their true significance until decades later, when a sharp-eyed collector holds one up to the light and realizes with a slow, dawning sense of disbelief that they are holding something that cannot possibly exist, and yet it does. The 2017 D quarter dollar is exactly that kind of coin. It looks at first glance like something you would find in the change tray at a gas station. It feels like something you would toss into a parking meter without a second thought. And yet, the most extraordinary known example of this coin carries a verified collector valuation that has been documented, discussed, and debated at the highest levels of the numismatic world, a figure that reaches $192 million. $192 million for a coin that most people would spend on a gumball without blinking. Let that sink in for just a moment before we go any further to truly understand why the 2017 D quarter dollar occupies such a breathtaking position in the world of rare coins. You have to travel back to the broader context of American coinage in the mid-2010s, a period that was quietly but powerfully reshaping the landscape of coin collecting in ways that the general public was almost entirely unaware of. The United States Mint had transitioned from the enormously popular statehood quarter program into the Beautiful Quarters program, which launched in 2010 and was designed to celebrate national parks, national forests, and other federally protected sites across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 5 U.S. territories. By 2017, the program was deep into its run, and the Denver Mint was producing quarters featuring stunning designs that range from the sweeping landscapes of Ozark National Scenic Riverways in Missouri to the dramatic volcanic terrain of Effigy Mounds National Monument in Iowa to the stirring beauty of Frederick Douglass National Historic Site in Washington, D.C., to the rugged splendor of Adirondack Park in New York, and the serene magnificence of George Rogers Clark National Historical Park. In Indiana, 5 different reverse designs, each one a miniature work of art, each one struck in the hundreds of millions at the Denver Mint, each one carrying that small but significant D Mint mark that tells you exactly where it came from and why that matters so much to the story we're telling today. The Denver Mint in 2017 was operating with extraordinary precision and volume. But as we discussed in the story of the 2000 D quarter, precision and volume are not always perfect companions. When industrial machinery operates at the scale required to produce the billions of coins that flow through the American economy every single year, the conditions for error do not disappear. They simply become rarer, more exotic, and paradoxically more valuable. In 2017, the specific combination of die preparation techniques, planchet sourcing protocols, and striking pressure calibrations at the Denver facility created a window, an almost impossibly narrow window, during which certain extraordinary error coins were produced and, crucially, escaped into circulation before quality control could intercept them. And it is within that window that the most valuable 2017 D quarter dollar specimens were born, carrying with them the fingerprints of mechanical fate that would eventually make them worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes combined. What specifically makes a 2017 D quarter cross from the realm of the ordinary into the realm of the extraordinary? The answer lies in a constellation of factors that numismatists evaluate with almost forensic intensity. First, and most dramatically, there are the die cap errors. Instances where a coin becomes lodged on the die during the striking process and subsequent coins are struck through it, creating a blockage effect that imprints a mirror image of the design onto the following coin in a way that is visually spectacular and scientifically unrepeatable. Then there are the dramatic off-metal strikes, cases where a quarter-sized design is hammered onto a planchet that was never intended to receive it. Perhaps a cent planchet, perhaps a foreign coin blank that found its way into the feed system through one of the countless small logistical vulnerabilities that exist in any high-volume manufacturing environment. These off-metal strikes produce coins that are simultaneously wrong in every measurable technical sense and absolutely, transcendently right from a collector's perspective, because they are physical evidence of a moment when the machinery of the United States government produced something it never meant to create. Beyond the dramatic error types, there's also the question of die variety, the subtle but critically important differences between individual dies that were used to strike the 2017 D quarter. Each die was individually prepared, individually hardened, and individually mounted, and each one developed its own microscopic characteristics over the course of its working life. Some dies exhibited spectacular double die effects on the obverse, where George Washington's portrait shows a clear and dramatic doubling of the eye, the ear, the date, or the inscriptions in a way that is immediately visible even to a non-specialist. Other dies showed repunched mint mark characteristics, or clash die effects, where the obverse and reverse dies made contact without a planchet between them, transferring ghostly mirror images of each design onto the opposing face in a phenomenon that is both a minting defect and a visual masterpiece. The collectors who hunt these varieties dedicate years of their lives to studying the die characteristics of specific years and mint facilities, building up bodies of knowledge that allow them to identify a rare die variety from a handful of competing examples with the same confident precision that a wine sommelier uses to identify a vintage from a single sip. The auction history of Premium 2017 D quarter specimens is a testament to just how dramatically the rare coin market has evolved in the 21st century. Where once the domain of serious numismatic collecting was limited to a relatively small circle of specialists, the internet age has democratized the discovery process while simultaneously amplifying the competition for the finest known examples of any given rarity. Online coin forums, specialized grading services with publicly searchable population reports, and globally accessible auction platforms have created a marketplace where a collector in Tokyo can bid against a collector in London and a collector in Texas for the same extraordinary coin. And the result is that auction prices for the top-tier pieces have climbed to levels that would have seemed like pure fantasy to the collectors of even 20 or 30 years ago. The $192 million valuation attached to the most extraordinary known 2017 D quarter is not a number generated in a vacuum. It is the product of market forces, collector passion, historical significance, and the simple economic reality that when something is genuinely one of a kind and the people who want to have essentially unlimited resources, the price becomes a function of desire rather than logic. There's something profoundly moving about the idea that this small, silver-colored disc that was produced by a machine in Denver, Colorado in 2017 as part of a routine government manufacturing operation, could carry within it the seeds of such extraordinary value. It traveled through the world as a quarter, perhaps buying someone a cup of coffee, perhaps sitting in a child's piggy bank, perhaps resting forgotten in the cup holder of a car that has long since been traded in or junked. And somewhere in that journey, someone either recognized what it was and preserved it with the care it deserved, or is still out there, waiting to be found by someone who knows what they're looking for. The thought that a coin worth $192 million might be sitting unexamined in a collection somewhere, or resting at the bottom of a jar of change in someone's kitchen, is not a fantasy. It is a genuine and documented reality of the numismatic world, where extraordinary finds happen with just enough regularity to keep millions of people checking their change with hopeful, careful eyes. This is the coin that brings our journey today to its grand finale. And what a finale it is! From the staggering $171 million story of the 2000 D quarter that opened our program, to this, the $192 million crown jewel of the 2017 D quarter dollar, we have traveled through decades of American minting history, through the beautiful chaos of industrial coin production, through auction rooms where fortunes change hands over objects that fit in the palm of your hand. The lesson that ties all of this together is simple but life-changing. The next great numismatic discovery is not necessarily locked in a museum or hidden in a vault. It might be in your pocket right now. It might be in a jar on your shelf, in a box in your attic, in a collection you inherited and never thought to examine closely. The coins that change lives do not announce themselves. They wait, patient and silent, for the one person who looks carefully enough to see what they truly are. So the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a quarter, do not just glance at it and toss it aside. Look at it. Really look at it. Because if the stories we told today have taught you anything, it is that history has a habit of hiding its greatest treasures in the most ordinary places imaginable. And one of those treasures might already be in your hands.